Chapter 2, Lesson 2, Culture, the meaning, characteristics, and functions. The customs, traditions, attitudes, values, norms, ideas, and symbols govern human behavior pattern. The members of the society not only endorse them but also mold their behavior accordingly. They are the members of the society because of the traditions and customs which are common and which are passed down from generation to generation through the process of socialization. These common patterns designate culture, and it is in terms of culture that we are able to understand the specific behavior pattern of human beings in their social relations. Cultural ideas emerge from shared social life. Now let's proceed to meaning of culture. One of the meaning of culture is that it refers to certain personal characteristics of an individual. Sometimes an individual is described as a highly cultured person, meaning thereby that the person in question has certain features such as his speech, manner, and taste for literature, music, or painting which distinguish him from others. Sometimes culture is used in popular discourse to refer to a celebration or an evening of entertainment, as when one speaks of a cultural show. In this sense, culture is identified with aesthetic or the fine arts such as dance, music, or drama. This is also different from the technical meaning of the word culture. Culture is used in a special sense in anthropology and sociology. Culture refers to the sum of human beings' life ways, their behavior, beliefs, feelings, and thought. According to Tyler, culture is a complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by a man as a member of society. According to Malinowski, culture includes inherited artifacts, implements and consumer goods, and social structure. The material elements that are made and used in accordance with socially inherited tradition should be called culture objects. Others include in culture all the major social components that bind men together in society. According to McLever, culture is the expression of our nature in our moods of living and our thinking, intercourse in our literature, in religion, in recreation and enjoyment. Culture, therefore, is moral, intellectual, and spiritual discipline for advancement, in accordance with the norms and values based on accumulated heritage. It is imbibing and making our own the lifestyle and social pattern of the group one belongs to. Culture is a system of learned behavior shared and transmitted among the members of the group. Culture is a collective heritage learned by individuals and passed from one generation to another. The individual receives culture as part of social heritage and in turn may reshape the culture and introduce changes which then become part of the heritage of succeeding generations. Now let's proceed to the characteristics of culture. The first is learned behavior. Not all behavior is learned, but most of it is learned. Behavior can be overt or covert. When we say overt behavior, these are behavior which are visible and very obvious. Best example of this is smiling. On the other hand, covert behavior is a type of behavior which is not openly visible to other people. The second characteristic of culture is abstract. Culture exists in the minds or habits of the members of society. Culture is the shared ways of doing and thinking. There are degrees of visibility of cultural behavior, ranging from the regularized activities of persons to their internal reasons for so doing. In other words, we cannot see culture as such, we can only see human behavior. This behavior occurs in regular patterned fashion and it is called culture. The third characteristic is culture is a pattern of learned behavior. The definition of culture indicated that the learned behavior of people is patterned. Each person's behavior often depends upon some particular behavior of someone else. The point is that, as a general rule, behaviors are somewhat integrated or organized with related behaviors of other persons. The fourth characteristic is culture is the products of behavior. Culture learnings are the products of behavior. As the person behaves, there occur changes in him. He acquires the ability to swim, to feel hatred towards someone, or to sympathize with someone. They have grown out of his previous behaviors. The fifth characteristic of culture is culture includes attitudes, values, knowledge. There is widespread error in the thinking of many people who tend to regard the ideas, attitudes, and notions which they have as their own. It is easy to overestimate the uniqueness of one's own attitudes and ideas. When there is agreement with other people, it is largely unnoticed, but when there is a disagreement or difference, one is usually conscious of it. Your differences, however, may also be cultural. For example, suppose you are a Catholic and the other person is a Protestant. Culture also includes material objects. To make these objects required numerous and various skills which human beings gradually built up through the ages. Man has invented something else, and so on. Occasionally, one encounters the view that man does not really make steel or a battleship. All these things first existed in a state of nature. The seventh characteristic is culture is shared by the members of society. The patterns of learned behavior and the results of behavior are possessed not by only one or a few persons, but also by a large proportion. Thus, many billions of persons shared such behavior patterns as Christianity, the use of automobiles, or the English language. The characteristic of culture is superorganic. Culture is sometimes called superorganic. It implies that culture is somehow superior to nature. The word superorganic is useful when it implies that what may be quite a different phenomenon from a cultural point of view. For example, a tree means different things to the botanist who studies it. The old woman who uses it for shade in the late summer afternoon, the farmer who picks its fruits, the motorist who collides with it, and the young lovers who carve their initials in its trunks. The ninth characteristic of culture is pervasive. Culture is pervasive, it touches every aspect of life. The pervasiveness of culture is manifest in two ways. First, culture provides an unquestioned context within which individual action and response take place. Not only emotional action, but also relational actions are governed by cultural norms. Second is, culture pervades social activities and institutions. The next is, culture is a way of life. Culture means simply the way of life of people or their design for living. A culture is a historically derived system of explicit and implicit designs for living, which tend to be shared by all or specially designed members of a group. Culture is a human product. Culture is a creation of society in interaction and depends for its existence upon the continuance of society. In a strict sense, therefore, culture does not do anything on its own. It does not cause the individual to act in a particular way, nor does it make the normal individual into a maladjusted one. Culture, in short, is a human product. It is not independently endowed with life. The next characteristic is culture is idealistic. Culture embodies the ideas and norms of a group. It is sum total of the ideal patterns and norms of behavior of a group. Culture consists of the intellectual, artistic, and social ideals and institutions which the members of the society confess and to which they strive to conform. The next is culture is transmitted among members of society. The cultural ways are learned by persons from persons. Many of them are handed down by one's elders, by parents, teachers, and others of a somewhat older generation. Other cultural behaviors are handed up to elders. Some of the transmission of culture is among contemporaries. For example, the style of dress, political views, and the use of recent labor-saving devices. The number 14 characteristic is culture is continually changing. There is one fundamental and inescapable attribute of culture, the fact of unending change. Some societies at some times change slowly and hence in comparison to other societies seem not to be changing at all, but they are changing, even though not obviously so. Next is culture is variable. Culture varies from society to society, group to group. Hence, we say culture of India or England. Further, culture varies from group to group within the same society. There are subcultures within a culture, cluster of patterns which are both related to general culture of the society and yet distinguishable from it is called subcultures. The next is culture is an integrated system. Culture possesses an order and system. Its various parts are integrated with each other and any new element which is introduced is also integrated. The last characteristic of culture is language is the chief vehicle of culture. Language is one of the most important vehicles for perpetuating cultural patterns. Man lives not only in the present but also in the past and future. He is able to do this because he possesses language which transmits to him what was learned in the past and enables him to transmit the accumulated wisdom to the next generation. Now let's proceed to the functions of culture. The first is culture defines situations. Each culture has many subtle cues which define each situations. One does not know what to do in a situation until he has defined the situation. Each society has its insults and fighting words. The cues or hints which define situations appear in infinitely variety. A person who moves from one society into another will spend many years misreading the cues, for example, laughing at the wrong places. The second function of culture is culture defines attitudes, values, and goals. Each person learns in his culture what is good, true, and beautiful. Attitudes, values, and goals are defined by the culture. while individual normally learns them as unconscious as he learns the language. The third function of culture is culture defines myths, legends, and supernatural. Myths and legends are an important part of every culture. They may inspire, reinforce effort, and sacrifice and bring comfort. The nature of divine power and the important moral issues are defined by the culture. The fourth function of culture is culture provides behavior patterns. Shaking hands, tipping hats, white clothing, and weddings, walk barefooted, growing a bird, touching feet, and kissing cheeks in greeting became part of cultural patterns.